The mother tied the scarf around her baby's neck and kicked the stool. The baby didn't cry, just stared, like she was waiting to see if death would blink first. The rope snapped. Death blinked first. 9 months earlier, Amara was eating giraffe meat like her soul depended on it. Some hungers destroy everything they touch. 9 months pregnant and craving what the ancestors had cursed. The elders screamed warnings. The old women called down lightning. But Amara didn't give a single damn about ancient wisdom. "Child, stop." Mama Ngozi grabbed her bloody wrist. "That meat carries judgment. Eat long-necked flesh. Birth children stretched by shame." Amara laughed with meat between her teeth. "My baby will be perfect because I am perfect." Lightning split the sky like God himself was pissed. The sacred tree beside them cracked in half. Even heaven was taking sides. Thunder rolled like angry ancestors, laughing at her arrogance. But Amara kept eating. What happened next broke every rule of human biology. Labor started 3 hours later. 17 hours of screaming, 17 hours of something wrong moving inside her, something too long, something impossible. When the baby finally came out, the room went dead silent. She was breathing, healthy, beautiful, except for that neck. It rose from her shoulders like a tower reaching for heaven's throat. "What is that thing?" Amara shrieked like she'd birthed the devil himself. "That's not my child, that's God's punishment." The baby opened ancient eyes that seemed to understand every cruel word. She didn't cry, just stared at her mother with something that looked like pity. "You gave me this neck, you'll die knowing what it became." Babies don't speak, but some babies don't need to. Amara grabbed the blue scarf meant to wrap her daughter, twisted it into death. "She needs to die before anyone sees this curse." "Amara, no." Her husband caught her hands. "She's our blood." "Blood," Amara fought like a woman possessed. "Look at it. Look at what crawled out of me. This is punishment for eating forbidden meat." The scarf tightened around that impossible neck. For one terrible moment, death held its breath. Then her husband's strength won. The baby gasped, lived, stared, but Amara had already decided her daughter's fate. 3 hours later, she tried again. Amara rose like a woman with murder in her heart. The baby lay watching with those knowing eyes that seemed older than time itself. "You ruined everything," she whispered, lifting her burden. "I wanted perfect. You gave me nightmare." She carried her daughter into the forest, past the sacred grove, to the split tree where the curse began. "This is where you belong, with the curse that made you." She pulled the blue scarf tight, testing its strength. The same fabric meant to comfort would now serve death. She tied one end to the strongest branch. The other end became a noose, her hands steady despite planning infanticide. "If God won't take you, then I'll send you to him myself." The baby's neck bent gracefully as the rope tightened, settling into the trap like she'd been waiting her whole 3-hour life for this moment. Amara positioned a stone beneath tiny feet, a stool that would hold just long enough. "Goodbye, mistake," she said, and kicked it away. For one horrific second, the baby swayed like forbidden fruit. Then the rope snapped. The fabric, weakened by hours of twisting, gave way with a sound like hope refusing to die. The baby fell into the hollow, unharmed, still staring with eyes that said, "Even death refuses to take me from you." "Even the rope refuses you," Amara whispered in horror. She wrapped the remaining fabric around her daughter and walked away without looking back. But something else was watching. Snakes, dozens of them, sliding from the shadows like liquid darkness. They should have struck, should have fed, should have finished what the mother started. Instead, they formed a protective circle. The largest python lifted its massive head and looked directly into the baby's face. Ancient intelligence met ancient intelligence. Then the snake gently wrapped one coil around the baby's wrist, not restraining, anchoring. "We know what you are. We've been waiting." The baby's lips moved, not in a cry, in a smile. 6 hours later, Dinma heard the humming, a melody rising from the earth itself, beautiful, impossible, like the forest was singing lullabies to abandoned children. She followed the sound and found a baby surrounded by snakes, all swaying to music that had no source. The python looked at Dinma with ancient eyes. After a long moment, it unwound and slithered away, the others following like a retreating honor guard. Dinma lifted the child, gasping at the impossible neck, the serene face, the eyes older than the forest itself. "Chizaram," she whispered. God answered. The baby nestled into her arms, and Dinma felt something she hadn't felt since losing her own children to the flood. Purpose. As they walked away from the cursed tree, the melody followed them, a tune that would one day heal millions. But that night, whispers spread like poison through the village. Amara's demon child survived the hanging. The rope itself rejected her evil. The snakes have chosen their queen. And in her house, Amara sat staring at empty hands that still remembered rope. She had tried twice to kill her daughter, strangling, then hanging. Both times, something greater had intervened. At both times, the child had looked at her with those ancient eyes that promised, "You gave me this neck. You'll die knowing what it became." Some children are born to be thrown away, and others are thrown away because they're too powerful for the people who lose them. She didn't give birth to a baby. She gave birth to her own judgment. The neck you tried to break became the crown you'll never wear. Some children are thrown away because they're too precious for the people who lose them. Dinma had not spoken in 7 years, not since the river took her husband and 3 children. She screamed their names until her voice broke, then chose silence over words that couldn't resurrect the dead. But holding this impossible child stirred something in her throat. Truth. "They'll call you cursed," she told the baby, her voice rusty but strong. "But I know cursed children. Mine were cursed by water. You're marked by something else entirely." Chizaram's eyes tracked to her face. In those depths, Dinma saw not baby innocence, but something that looked like ancient wisdom. "You understand exactly what you are." The first 8 years passed in protective silence. Dinma raised Chizaram like a secret wrapped in prayers. She kept that neck hidden beneath scarves and high collars, taught her to move gracefully despite impossible proportions, to speak softly so her voice wouldn't draw stares, to smile in ways that made people forget to stare. But extraordinary things refused to stay hidden. The school notice came like a death sentence. All children must attend, no exceptions. "She can learn at home," Dinma told the messenger, her voice steady as stone. "The law is the law, Mama Dinma." The man's eyes gleamed with cruel curiosity. "Besides, we've heard stories. The village wants to see what you've been hiding." That night, they sat under stars that seemed close enough to touch. "Tomorrow will be hard," Dinma said. "They'll stare, they'll whisper. Some will be monsters." Chizaram nodded, already beautiful in ways that made people uncomfortable, too elegant, too aware, too impossible. "Will you be ashamed of me?" "Never. I'll be heartbroken if you let their fear make you forget what you are." "What am I?" The answer to a prayer I didn't know I was praying. The first day of school began with screaming. Chizaram walked into the classroom like royalty entering court. The screaming came from children who saw her neck and reacted like they'd seen the devil himself. "Monster!" shrieked Kalechi, pointing with a trembling finger. "Snake girl!" wailed Adana, backing toward the wall. "Even her shadow looks wrong," shouted another. Miss Odera stared like someone watching physics break its own rules. "Perhaps we should call your mother," she stammered. "My mother knows where I am," Chizaram replied with devastating calm. "But surely you belong with other children like you." "There are no other children like me." The simple truth silenced the room harder than any teacher's scolding. She was right. In all the world, there was only one child with a neck that defied nature. Only one girl who moved like water and spoke like wind. The screaming stopped. The staring never did. By week's end, she had a nickname that would follow her into legend: Giraffe Girl. They chanted it during breaks: Giraffe Girl, neck so long it makes you hurl. They whispered it in corridors. I heard she sleeps standing up like a real giraffe. They sang it during games: Giraffe Girl, why don't you leave this world? But the cruelest moments came during lunch. First time, they pointed and whispered. Second time, someone threw rice at her neck like feeding animals at a zoo. Third time, they dumped an entire water pot over her head. "We're helping you drink. Your neck is so long, the water probably evaporates before it reaches your stomach." Chizaram sat motionless as water dripped from her impossible neck, uniform soaked, dignity intact. She didn't cry, didn't run, didn't fight back. She simply stood, gathered her things, and walked away with the grace of someone who'd learned that reactions were rewards for cruelty. But silence was making her stronger. When children mocked her walk, she walked more gracefully. When they imitated her voice, she spoke more softly. When they tried to make her angry, she became more serene. Each insult polished her like a diamond under pressure. "It's not you they fear," Eniye explained when Chizaram came home with tears and mud. "It's what you represent. Proof the world is stranger than they want to believe." "Then why can't they look away?" "Because beautiful, strange things are impossible to ignore. You disturb their sleep and haunt their dreams. They mock you because they can't forget you. Is that good or bad? It's power. What you do with power makes you good or bad." That night, Chizaram stood before her mirror, studying the reflection that had caused so much fear and fascination. For the first time, she didn't see a mistake. She saw a question the world wasn't ready to answer. But someone else was watching her with very different eyes. She wasn't mocked for being ugly. She was mocked for being unforgettable. Silence raised her better than noise ever could. They called her monster. She called herself art. 3 months into her first school year, Chizaram faced her ultimate test. The monthly school assembly. Every student, every teacher, every parent who could spare time from their farms and shops. 200 people packed into the small hall like witnesses to an execution. "Today," announced Headmaster Okoro, his voice carrying across the nervous crowd, "we address the situation that has been disrupting our learning environment." Every eye turned toward Chizaram, sitting alone in the front row. Her neck rose above the crowd like a question mark posed to God himself. "Some of our students have expressed concerns about feeling comfortable in their learning environment." The words hit like stones thrown at glass. Chizaram's hands remained folded in her lap. Her expression stayed serene. But something in her chest began to burn like a star being born. "We must consider what's best for the majority of our children," the headmaster continued, never once looking directly at Chizaram. "Sometimes special situations require special arrangements." Eniye stood from the back of the room. Her voice cut through the suffocating air like lightning splitting sky. "What special arrangements?" "Perhaps homeschooling would be more appropriate, less disruptive." The silence that followed was pregnant with violence. Then Chizaram stood. Her impossible neck stretched toward the ceiling like a tower refusing to bow. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who'd spent 8 years learning to transform pain into power. "Headmaster Okoro," she said, each word landing like a stone in still water. "Are you asking me to leave because I'm disrupting education, or because I'm disrupting ignorance?" The crowd stirred. This wasn't the response they'd expected from a child they'd been calling monster. "Young lady, you should let the adults—" "I am letting the adults speak. You've been speaking for 3 minutes about how my face makes other children uncomfortable, but you haven't asked why their comfort matters more than my education." Murmurs rippled through the assembly like wind through wheat. "You haven't explained why I should hide so they can feel normal. You haven't told me what I've done wrong except exist in a body you find disturbing." Her voice grew stronger, carrying across the hall like a bell ringing truth. "You want to send me home because looking at me reminds you that the world is stranger and more beautiful than you're brave enough to accept." The headmaster's face flushed. "That's quite enough." "No." Chizaram's voice rose above his like dawn conquering darkness. "It's not nearly enough. You teach children that education is about learning to see the world clearly. But you want to remove me because seeing me clearly terrifies you." She walked to the center of the assembly hall, her neck rising like a monument to defiance. "You call me disruption. I call myself divine. You see monster. I see masterpiece. You want me to disappear so you can pretend people like me don't exist." She unwrapped the blue scarf from around her neck, letting it fall to the floor like a gauntlet thrown at the feet of ignorance. But I do exist, and I'm not going anywhere. And every day I stay here, I prove that beautiful comes in more shapes than your small minds can imagine." The hall was dead silent. 200 people holding their breath as an 8-year-old girl redefined courage before their eyes. "If my presence disrupts your comfort, then your comfort was built on lies. If my face disturbs your peace, then your peace was built on pretending people like me don't matter." She looked directly at the headmaster with eyes that held the accumulated wisdom of every abandoned child who'd ever learned to save themselves. "I will not hide to make you comfortable. I will not disappear to make your world simpler. I will not apologize for taking up space you think belongs to someone else." And then she did something that would be remembered for decades. She smiled, not the careful, apologetic smile she'd been taught to wear, but the full, radiant expression of someone who'd just discovered their own power. "I am Chizaram. I am 8 years old. I have a neck that defies your expectations and a voice that refuses to be silenced. And I'm exactly who I was meant to be." The applause started slowly, one person, then another. Then a wave of recognition washing over the assembly as people understood they'd just witnessed something extraordinary. A child teaching adults how to see. But the voice that mattered most came from the back of the room. "She stays." Dinma's words cut through the applause like a sword through silk. "She stays, and every child who has a problem looking at her can learn that the world is bigger than their comfort zone." The headmaster stammered, "But the other parents?" "The other parents can explain to their children why they raised them to fear difference instead of celebrate it." When the assembly ended, something fundamental had shifted. Chizaram didn't return to her seat. She walked out of the hall with her head high and her neck stretched toward heaven, carrying herself like someone who'd just won a war without firing a shot. Behind her, whispers followed, like the sound of minds changing. "Did you see how she stood? That child has more courage than most adults. Maybe we've been wrong about what makes someone beautiful." That night, Dinma found Chizaram sitting by the window, staring at stars that seemed close enough to touch. "How do you feel?" "Like I just learned the difference between hiding and healing." "What's the difference?" "Hiding makes you smaller, healing makes the world bigger." From that day forward, something changed in how people looked at Chizaram. Not everyone learned to love her, but everyone learned to respect her. More importantly, she learned something about herself that would carry her through everything that followed. Some voices are too important to silence, some necks are too strong to break, some children are too powerful to throw away. She didn't ask for acceptance, she demanded recognition. The assembly came to judge her, she left having judged them. That day, an 8-year-old taught adults how to see. Obiora had been sketching Chizaram for 2 months before finding courage to show her. It started after she destroyed that assembly. He sat in the art room's back corner, trying to capture her neck's impossible geometry, watching her move through halls like liquid grace given form. His first attempts were disasters, anatomically impossible sketches that looked more mythological than human. But Obiora was an architect's son. He understood impossible structures, required impossible solutions. More importantly, he understood that some things were built to defy conventional wisdom. By month's end, he'd filled 3 sketchbooks with studies from every angle. Chizaram reading, thinking, defending herself with quiet dignity. In every image, her neck wasn't an aberration. It was the central element that made everything else make sense. "You're obsessed," his friend Kalechi observed. "It's weird." "I'm not obsessed. I'm studying perfection." "That girl? She's a freak of nature." Obiora's charcoal stopped moving, his jaw tightened with controlled fury. "Have you seen the Sagrada Familia?" "The what?" "Cathedral in Spain. Took over a century to build. Reaches higher than any sensible building should, with proportions that defy every rule." He held up his sketch, studying Chizaram's neck against afternoon light. "But when you see it, you understand normal was never the point. Some things are built to touch heaven." "You're comparing her to a building." "I'm comparing her to art that makes people believe in God." Kalechi shook his head. "You're as crazy as she is." "Maybe, but I'd rather be crazy than blind." That afternoon, Obiora made a decision that would change both their lives. He chose his best drawing, Chizaram beneath the mango tree, neck creating a perfect S-curve as she looked toward something only she could see. Her scarf caught invisible wind, expression holding the serene confidence of someone who'd figured out an answer the world was still seeking. It was the face of someone who'd stopped apologizing for existing. He photographed it, printed it using paper he'd saved money to buy, then walked directly to her desk before he could lose his nerve. "This is you." Chizaram stared at the image. In Obiora's hands, her neck wasn't deformity or curse. It was architecture, poetry, everything she'd been trying to see in mirrors but couldn't quite capture. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Because you're art, and art is supposed to be seen." "I look." She stopped, searching for words that had never existed before this moment. Beautiful, like someone worth drawing, worth remembering, worth defending. She studied the image again, seeing herself through eyes that held no mockery, no pity, no desire to change or fix or improve her. Just appreciation for what was. "Can I keep this?" "It's yours. It was always yours. I was just the one holding the charcoal." That afternoon changed everything. For the first time since starting school, Chizaram found herself in conversation with someone who wasn't trying to hurt her, heal her, or understand her condition. Someone who simply saw her. "Do you really see me that way? Or are you being kind?" Obiora considered seriously. Understanding his answer would matter more than most words ever mattered. "I see you the way a cathedral sees the sky, like something built specifically to reach it. But I'm not built. I'm born wrong. You're built right for something the rest of us haven't figured out yet." He pulled out his sketchbook, showing page after page, Chizaram in every light, every mood, every expression. In each drawing, her neck was rendered not as aberration, but as the feature that made everything else make sense. "You see patterns," she said, studying his work with growing wonder. "I see truth. Your neck doesn't make you strange, it makes you singular." "What's the difference?" "Strange means out of place. Singular means irreplaceable." He showed her more sketches, technical drawings that analyzed the engineering of her proportions, artistic studies that captured the poetry of her movement. "I want to take these to the art teacher, submit them to the regional exhibition, show the world what I see." "And what do you see?" "The future of beauty." Chizaram was quiet for a long moment, processing this offer. Fame could be dangerous, attention could be cruel, but it could also be transformative. What if they laugh? Then they'll be laughing at a mirror of their own blindness. What if they stare? They're already staring, but this time they'll be staring at art instead of accident. 3 weeks later, something explosive happened. Obiora's portrait series Cathedral Girl won first place at the regional student art exhibition. The local newspaper ran a feature that reached beyond their small community. "What inspired this series?" asked the reporter. "Meeting someone who taught me extraordinary was better than ordinary. Most people see what's wrong with the world. She showed me what's right with it." "And you, Chizaram? How does it feel being the subject of award-winning art?" "Like someone finally learned how to look." Her words became the quote shared thousands of times when the story went viral on social media platforms across West Africa. The attention was immediate and overwhelming. Fashion photographers from Lagos called about the girl with the impossible neck. Art galleries wanted to display Obiora's drawings. Television producers inquired about interviews. But the message that changed everything came from much farther away. Adeze Okwu, creative director of Lagos Fashion Collective, sent a handwritten letter on expensive paper. "Dear Chizaram, I saw your photograph in the newspaper and haven't been able to stop thinking about you. In 20 years of fashion, I've never seen anyone with your unique proportions and natural elegance. Would you be interested in modeling for our charity gala? This could change your life." That evening, Chizaram sat with Dinma reading the letter for the 5th time while fireflies danced outside their window. Lagos, the big city. It's just one show, one night. That changes everything. They understood the weight. Lagos wasn't their village where everyone knew her story. Lagos was West Africa's fashion capital, full of sophisticated people with sophisticated expectations. What does your heart tell you? That I've been preparing for this my whole life without knowing it. And your mind? That preparation and readiness aren't the same thing. What do you need to feel ready? Chizaram looked at the blue scarf, same fabric that wrapped her as a baby, nearly became her shroud, now worn to every important moment as a reminder of how far love could travel. I need a dress, something that makes the neck that tried to kill me look like the crown it was always meant to be. She wasn't cursed, she was carved for greatness. The runway became her altar. Art doesn't apologize for taking up space. If you're eager to see how this story unfolds, please subscribe and let us know in the comments below. Type continue to see episode 2. Your feedback will help shape future videos on this channel.